Bryan Kohberger will be spending the rest of his life in prison after he admitted to murdering four college students. Obviously, as many of you guys have heard, this crime was absolutely egregious. It was disgusting. And it really caught our country off guard because we just couldn't imagine the level of evil that happened that night. Now, Bryan did make his way into the courtroom where he took a beat down from the victims' families. Ultimately, folks, it was one that you really had to listen into because I don't think we've ever seen anything like it. There was one of the victims, Kaylee Conclave's sister, who came out and she spoke out in regards to Coburg and what he did to her, but she didn't come off as sad. She actually came off and really wanted to make him know that he was a weak little man. And I have to say, she gave an incredible, incredible statement to the court. Take a listen.
The truth is, you're as dumb as they come. Stupid, clumsy, slow, sloppy, weak, dirty. Let me be very clear. Don't ever try to convince yourself you mattered just because someone finally said your name out loud. I see through you. You want the truth? Here's the one you'll hate the most. If you hadn't attacked them in their sleep, in the middle of the night, like a pedophile, Kaylee would have kicked your ass. Thank you.
Thank you.
My empathy is obviously with the family and all of this, but I just couldn't wrap my mind around how the prosecutor just allowed Bryan to take a plea agreement, where he really didn't have to give any answers as to why he did this to these four innocent college students. And it really has me on edge. So joining me to discuss is legal expert Phil Holloway. He's also an incredible attorney. And we're very happy for him now because he's also the co-host and contributor for MK True Crime, which is a project that, as many of you guys know, Megyn Kelly is working on right now. So Phil, congratulations. That's a lot to add to the resume. So we're very excited for you on that front. I know you've been following this case extensively, though, and let's just talk about the victims' families here and the statements that they gave the court. I mean, that one was extremely, extremely powerful. To not hear her as sad as what most people are when it comes to these statements, but instead giving him the middle finger and telling him that you didn't win this at all. Your reaction to hearing her statement?
Yeah, Breanna, thanks for having me. Always a pleasure to be here with you. And thanks for the kind words on this new endeavor. We're very excited about it. Look, this is being popularly portrayed as the prosecution making a plea deal with Bryan Kohberger, but it was actually the other way around. What happened was the Kohberger defense team, they had this bananas legal theory where they wanted to go and by name, they wanted to accuse four other, I think, college students as being potential alternative suspects with little to no or actually zero evidence. And of course, the judge shut them down and they said, you're not gonna be able to present that defense. And so right after that ruling, the defense contacted the prosecutor and said, look, we will plead to the sheet. That means plead to all the charges if you take the death penalty off the table. And the prosecution said yes. So Kohberger made the plea offer and the prosecutor accepted Kohberger's terms. That's how this went down. It's bananas. And I'm not sure why, because look, having been a prosecutor, I can tell you that unless you have all of the victims and their families on board, and remember, there are surviving actual victims, the two roommates in that house that survived this horrific crime. They're living victims, and then you've got the family victims, the survivors. If they're not all in agreement, Breanna, it doesn't make sense, at least to me, in my opinion, to agree to Kohberger's terms to take the death penalty off the table. I just don't understand it. I don't know if they just wanted to get it over with. I don't know if they had some concern about their ability to successfully prosecute the case, maybe the resources on the prosecutor's office. I don't know what it was, but to me, it's not the decision I would have made. On the other hand, it does guarantee a conviction. It does guarantee a sort of stiff penalty, not stiff enough in my view, but it does bring some end to this because there never can really be closure, but perhaps the families can move forward now with some type of healing, hopefully.
Yeah, and Phil, I want to talk about the healing process because, like you mentioned, there's two victims who are still alive, and for some reason, he didn't go and kill them when they were sleeping. And then obviously the other four lost their lives in all of this. So between the two survivors who are probably wondering, well, why me? Why me? And then the four family victims who are all wondering why them. What it just seems strange to me that they wouldn't ask him to walk them through that night and to kind of get key facts from him, because the reality of it is this: I'm worried that maybe in 20 years from now he comes out and says, you know what, they forced me into this plea agreement, I didn't actually believe in it. And although he's waived his rights for appeal, the reality of it is he could try to bring this back to the surface for the victims' families and
Yeah.
really make them go through this hell again. How does this
Yeah, well,
happen?
the prosecutor made a big deal in his theatrical presentation that he waived his right to appeal, but the U.S. Supreme Court has said you can't ever actually really do that. For example,
Mhm.
he could say, "All right, my lawyers abandoned this defense that I had going, and they gave me ineffective assistance of counsel." And as such, I'm entitled to a new trial in the case. So there are appeals that can be brought, but the idea that the prosecutor would accept Bryan Kohberger's terms without adding a term of their own, such as, all right, look, uh, you're going to come into our office, or we're going to interview you at the jail. We're going to get a complete statement from you. You're going to answer all of our questions about motive, about how you carried this out, and you're going to answer all of them truthfully. And then, after we decide that you've answered our questions truthfully and that we've got all the answers the families want, then maybe we'll consider taking your deal. And that can all be done confidentially. It can be done in an inadmissible way, so that his statement can't be used against him if the plea deal falls through. You can build, if you're the prosecutor, you can build that kind of mechanism into the plea deal, or whatever you call this aberration, so that the families can at least get some of those answers. And it's not just families, by the way; it's those who people like me who study crime, and we want to sort of know what motivates these serial killers, so that they can perhaps be better tracked and apprehended in the future. So the prosecutor really, really missed an opportunity, in my opinion, to get some answers out of Bryan Kohberger.
Yeah, yeah, and I want to ask you about the judge, because yesterday the judge did get very emotional during the sentencing hearing, and it was very obvious, wiping away tears. But ultimately, is the judge just kind of bound to the terms of this agreement? Is there anything that the judge could do at that point? I mean, they could probably toss the whole thing, but I mean, is that something that would likely even happen?
Judges are never obligated, Breanna, to accept any negotiated plea.
Mhm.
In this case, the judge did maintain some discretion. The judge could have given him something less than life without parole. Nobody really ever thought that was reasonably likely to happen. It's really the prosecutor's decision, though, whether or not to seek the death penalty. That's more of a prosecution function, or, it's an executive branch kind of function versus a judicial branch thing. So the judge really didn't have a whole lot to approve here. The judge was required to go through and make sure that the defendant knowingly and voluntarily waived his right to a trial and admitted to each and every element of the offenses that were charged in that indictment. So, beyond that, the judge's role is really, really limited. The judge is obligated to, of course, hold court the way he did and allow the victims and their families to present their impact statements. But his role was very, very limited. He could have theoretically given less than life without parole, but everybody knew that he was going to do what he did yesterday.
Yeah, yeah. It was upsetting to see, and I feel for the families, especially those who didn't want this option. They wanted the death penalty. They wanted his day in court through his criminal trial, and so it's sad to see all of that. But also, it was even
Well,
sadder
okay,
to
let me
see.
talk about. Sorry to interrupt you, but let me talk about that for a second. So, thinking about the death penalty, okay, in Idaho, it's a firing squad. Okay,
Mhm.
so if he gets the death penalty, of course, there's going to be decades, perhaps, of appeals, but he's going to be spending the rest of his life wondering: is it going to hurt? Are the marksmen going to be accurate? Am I going to go quickly? He's going to be worried about all of these things for the rest of his natural life. Now he doesn't have to worry about that. All he's got to do is, play on his tablet, message with, I understand he's been messaging with family and all this pretty much at will, all he wants. And he's going to get to watch TV, and he's going to be segregated. So he's probably not going to have to worry about other inmates too much, at least for a while. So he's got a lot less to worry about now that the death penalty has been taken off the table, which is one of the big problems I've got with this.
Yeah, yeah. No, I have a big issue with that too. And I get for legal reasons they can't just throw them into general population and allow the other inmates to have at it with these people. But man, the protective layer of security that people like Brian and even pedophiles in prison receive, it just really gets me upset because it's when you're hoping for justice to be served. Oh gosh, well, Phil, you're a lawyer, so I probably shouldn't say this on camera. But it's just the whole thing has me really upset, especially for the families involved in all of this. Reading their stories, listening to them talking to outlets like Fox News about how they didn't want any of this to happen, that they wanted the death penalty to still be an option. It's just really infuriating. Then to hear him to say, I declined to comment or to even make a statement to the court yesterday when the judge gave him that moment to speak to the families. It just goes to prove that he's a real piece of garbage and he doesn't even want to apologize for it. So not surprising there. Phil, I want to tell our audience before you go about your X page. That's where I turn to whenever I've got any type of legal questions or I want to know what's going on in the courts. You always give the greatest updates and the easiest breakdowns for me to understand because I'm not a lawyer. So folks, the link is in the description of this video. Head on over there right now. Give him a follow. You will be really, really relieved when you do just that. Phil, thank you for joining me and helping me understand all of this. As always, we greatly appreciate your time.
Anytime. I look forward to coming back and visiting with you more about this or anything else.
You know what's so funny? Every time someone has a disagreement with another person on X, I always see them say like, oh, this person's like funded by Russia, Ukraine, Israel, whatever country you could think of. Well, this show, I can promise you guys, isn't funded by any corrupt foreign governments. It's funded by you guys, the viewers. So if you want to keep this show independent, and that doesn't mean I'm potentially entertaining a Russia business deal. But folks, if you want to keep the show independent, we need your help. And that's the reality behind all of this. So if you support independent journalism, you got to keep us going. And we appreciate it when you do. Head on over to independentnewsroom.com. That is the independentnewsroom.com. We've set up Donor Box and it is the platform you could head on over to donate to this show. Again, we're not funded by any corrupt corporations or foreign governments. You guys keep us up and running. You can make a one-time donation or a monthly donation, and you get to pick the dollar amount. Again, folks, it is the independentnewsroom.com. That is the independentnewsroom.com.